Live to Guelph, this is where Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is making an announcement about affordable housing.
My first big announcement of 2024 that we have agreed and are moving forward on that housing accelerator investment for Guelph is a really, really good and big thing. We know people have faced significant challenges right across the country in terms of housing, and as a government we've stepped up over the past many years with a national housing strategy that helped lead towards the investments that built this place. Our partnerships on initiatives like Reaching Home and combating homelessness, which made significant investments and increases to over the past years, are all part of understanding that housing doesn't have a one-size-fits-all solution. There are many different things and measures that we've put forward to support on housing, whether it's a first-time home buyer's savings account that has allowed hundreds of thousands of families to save up for a down payment in their first home, whether it's initiatives like the rapid housing strategy that converted homes and created homes quickly during the pandemic and beyond, or whether it's initiatives like the Reaching Home program to combat homelessness or the Housing Accelerator. But the Housing Accelerator is a particular program that really came together because we listened and we looked at, even with all the investments we've been making over the past years in housing, there was a need to do more. So we sat down with community leaders and mayors like Cam right across the country to talk about what the barriers were. Why wasn't Canada building enough housing quickly for our growing population? And it came down to obviously many different factors. There was a need for greater densification. There's a need for ability to shift zoning more rapidly. There is a need to look at red tape and how we can accelerate processes within municipal structures. And all that needed investments and support so that municipalities and councils could actually tackle the big changes, the structural changes in processes and zoning and densification that would lead to unlocking the housing needs that we had to meet in the coming years. So that's where we put forward a $4 billion housing accelerator fund to do just that. And we have been working with now 20 cities across the country that have signed the housing accelerator agreements that rewards cities that have been forward-thinking, ambitious, willing to challenge the way things used to be done, willing to challenge NIMBYism, and get things done to grow communities and to meet the needs of the future. And that's exactly what this has been about. Le Fonds pour l'accélération du logement est là pour créer plus de maisons
is there to build more homes faster across the country. We've been attacking issues of densification and zoning and the red tape that is slowing the construction process down. All challenges that municipalities were facing when it came to building homes faster. This $4 billion investment across the country has enabled us to unblock hundreds of thousands of new housing units over the next few years.
750 new units minimum over the coming few years, and over the next 10 years, close to 10,000 new units that we can project. But the reality is, as we change the way things are built in communities like this right across the country, we get to see more and more unlocked in meaningful ways to meet the challenges of the future. That's what this is all about, recognizing that partnerships across orders of government, leaning on ambitious and visionary local leaders, from municipal leaders like him to all the great community organizations who've been working, particularly here in Guelph, for decades to solve some really challenging and persistent problems faced by so many citizens. This is what it's all about. It's getting things done in concrete ways that are going to help people. C'est notre engagement auprès des Canadiens de reconnaître que
this is our commitment to Canadians to acknowledge that, yes, we are going through difficult times here in Canada and across the world. But we can create solutions when we work together, when we make the targeted investments necessary to remove the red tape and allow the growth that we need. As such, we will continue to build a better country for all.
The promise of Canada is under threat. That promise that every generation can stand on the shoulders of generations before and succeed even more? Well, people are worried that that might not hold. And what we're focusing on is securing that promise of Canada, making sure that we see the best possible future for next generations while we build a strong economy that works for all Canadians at the same time. Canada is the best country in the world. We're going to keep working together to make it even better. With that, I'm very pleased to introduce my friend and yours, the Mayor of Guelph, Cam Guthrie. Cam.
And we've been listening to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who's live in Guelph, where, as he said, he has made his first big announcement of 2024 that they are moving forward with the housing accelerator for Guelph. Now, let's go back to Prime Minister Trudeau, who's in Guelph and is taking questions right now.
Les États-Unis et le Royaume-Uni sans qu'il y ait de consultation avec le Parlement. Comment ça se fait? Est-ce que c'est approprié?
That's right. And so doctors sounded the alarm.
Des Houthis contre le transport maritime civil et commercial dans la mer Rouge était absolument inacceptable et dangereuse. Et contre non seulement la loi internationale, la Charte des Nations Unies, mais contre aussi des résolutions prises par le Conseil de sécurité des Nations Unies pour protéger le transport commercial de biens, de denrées, d'aide humanitaire dans cette région. Donc c'était extrêmement grave que les Houthis s'attaquent aux voies maritimes civiles et commerciales. Donc, la communauté, des membres de la communauté internationale, dont le Canada
community,
et d'autres,
including Canada and others,
engagés à assurer
have committed to providing protection to this region. Canada supports what the United States and the UK have done. We were present with personnel in the planning phase, but we did not offer assistance or operational resources for the strikes. These were very targeted strikes. And these were strikes that were designed to prevent the Houthis from continuing their strikes on maritime routes.
The strikes by Houthi militia on maritime traffic, on civilian and commercial vessels, are absolutely unacceptable. They're contrary to international law. They're contrary to the UN Charter. They go against very specific UN Security Council resolutions ensuring protection of traffic in the Red Sea and in the region. That's why a number of international actors, including Canada, were deeply concerned by these continued attacks on commercial and civilian traffic. The United States and the United Kingdom have engaged in precision strikes to degrade the Houthis' capacity to continue to violate international law, the UN Charter, and go against very specific UN Security Council resolutions. And we have been there in a supportive role. There are Canadian military involved in some of the Canadian military members involved in some of the planning, but we did not have any operational assets involved in the precision strikes.
Vous nous avez expliqué la position du Canada, c'est bien. Ça ne répond pas à ma question sur la nécessité de consulter
about the need to consult MPs. We've been saying for weeks that the conflict could be spreading and whether Canada would be participating directly or not.
La population canadienne via les parlementaires?
Should the Canadian people be consulted via their MPs? Canada has long been a country that stands up for the rule of law, and we have a responsibility to protect civilians and interests of the rule of law across the globe. We have acted within our authorities without consulting parliamentarians. No, we acted within our responsibilities.
Stood up for the rule of law and is actively engaged in exactly that around the world in many different ways. We will continue to take the necessary actions and engage in responsible ways in ensuring that the world is a safer place.
Next question. Prime Minister, Ken Hashizumi from CJOI and Global News. I just want to ask you a question about was Canada told its coalition partners about any red lines it may have in terms of military activity or escalation that Canada will not support?
We've had, obviously, many conversations at the officials and at the leadership level on the importance of protecting the international rules-based order. We all have real concerns about the escalation that the Houthis have demonstrated in attacking civilian and commercial vessels in the region. We ensured, and we work as all our partners did, ensured that the targets and the strikes were as precise and specific as possible in terms of degrading the Houthi military capacity to continue to attack and interdict commercial traffic in the Red Sea that is carrying humanitarian and important economic goods for the world. Okay. Nous avons toujours travaillé pour s'assurer que les cibles soient très précises,
that the targets are very precise
face à cette escalation des Houthis.
And responsible given this escalation with the Houthis.
Hello, Mr. Prime Minister. Mark Perry from GuelphToday.com. Just to back on the housing topic, of course, you know, a lot of this announcement, it seems like it's more just to eliminate the red tape and a lot of that stuff just maybe at the City Hall level. I'm curious about the labor. Do you feel like that's going to be a barrier in achieving the goals that you're looking to achieve with the Accelerator Fund and as well as, you know, trying to get a lot of these houses toward the targets, of course?
Well, first of all, we recognize there is no one thing that is a magic solution on housing. It takes a multi-layered approach. Even as we're announcing the signing of the Housing Accelerator Fund, we're not doing that in an empty field. We're doing that in a building that federal funding flowed to years ago to be able to create concrete solutions. So it's about announcing and it's about moving forward on simplifying and supporting municipalities as they look to be even more ambitious in what they're doing. But we're going to look at all aspects of the barriers that are slowing down or interfering with the need to meet the growth that Canada and communities like Guelph are facing. Yes, construction workers and availability of labor is a challenge we're facing, which is why we continue to have ambitious immigration targets, why we continue to make sure that we see the growth of Canada as a good thing as we welcome people around the world, but we need to do it in such ways that we are able to get them into the kinds of jobs where things are needed and solving the challenges that we're facing.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next question.
Hello. What is Canada's position on South Africa's case at the ICJ on Israel committing genocide in Gaza?
Canada has long been a tremendous supporter of the international rules-based order and the processes and structures that have been put in place over the past decades to be able to actually ensure that international law is respected and enforced. And the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, is a key part of that. Canada right now is directly engaged in at least 5 different cases at the ICJ because we believe in the importance of that as an institution. But our wholehearted support of the ICJ and its processes does not mean that we support the premise of the case brought forward by South Africa. We will continue to follow closely. The first phase of the ICJ hearings actually just ended hours ago with Israel completing its submission, and I can assure you there will be a ministerial statement in the coming hours laying out in detail Canada's position. La première étape du processus devant la Cour internationale de la justice vient juste de conclure il y a quelques heures avec l'Israël mettant de l'avant sa position. Et donc, je peux vous assurer qu'on va avoir une déclaration complète au niveau ministériel sur la Cour internationale de la justice et cette situation dans les heures à venir. Mais je peux vous dire que le Canada, depuis des années, est l'un des plus ardents défenseurs du système international fondé sur les règles et des institutions qui sont importantes, incluant la Cour internationale de la justice. Nous allons toujours appuyer le travail qu'ils font parce que c'est très important pour le monde. En même temps, notre appui du processus et de l'institution de la Cour internationale de la justice n'implique pas que nous appuyons la prémisse de la question posée par l'Afrique du Sud. Bien sûr, nous allons suivre de proche les développements à la Cour internationale de la justice.
Thank you. Next question. What kind of funding can the federal government provide for municipalities to help people who are on the streets right now, especially as temperatures drop?
We have invested millions and millions of dollars in fighting homelessness across the country with our Reaching Home program, where we recently doubled and into the billions of dollars our investments in fighting homelessness and supporting people who are the most vulnerable. But again, like any problem we're facing, there is no one simple way to do it. We've invested about $59 million over the past years through our national housing strategy here in Guelph, and a number of those investments have headed towards initiatives that have helped counter homelessness. We've specifically stepped up with $8 million for Guelph on fighting homelessness. The investments we've facilitated that have led to buildings like this are part of it, but we know there's more to do. But as a government, we are committed to ending chronic homelessness, and we have been acting in that way and investing in partnership with not just municipalities, but the incredible community organizations that have been on the front lines of not just solving homelessness by putting people in units, but by creating the wraparound services, from health services to counseling to help with job searches, with all the kinds of things that provide solutions to restore dignity to individuals, to see them be able to envisage a future in which they are active determinants of what they want their world to be.
Thank you. I'm Adam Donaldson from Guelph Politico. I'd like to follow up on her question, actually, because I mean, we're all here aware of the federal funds that have come in to support programs. That's not ongoing. And it seems that there's programs I can name here in Guelph that get started, are successful, are having an impact, and then they have to go search for funds. So what responsibility does the federal government have to make sure there are ongoing funds for these programs?
That's a really great question, and it folds back a little bit, unfortunately, into constitutional divisions of power. The federal government can and will and has been there to invest in capital projects, to allow places like this to be built, and sometimes be able to sort of start the work they're doing. But ongoing operational funding for whether it's health services or community counseling services or supportive programs to help people often need to come from, or often do come from, the provincial level as well. And that's where all orders of government need to work together. And I can tell you that the City of Guelph has consistently stepped up with supports, with in-kind supports, with programs to be there on the front lines helping the most vulnerable. The federal government has continually, even though it's stretching outside of our strict constitutional mandate, been there to invest in shelters, to invest in programs that are helping people. We do need the province to step up a little bit more, and we're always there to work with them as they do.
Okay, well, like the mayor, I also want to take a walk down memory lane for a minute. In 2015, you made a campaign promise. It was going to be the last election with first past the post. A lot of people in Guelph here took you at your word. I know there's efforts on Parliament Hill to try and revisit that. Is it time for you to revisit your promise?
I am deeply committed to the idea of electoral reform. I think citizens being able to rank their choices, say my first choice is this party, but my second choice is that party, prevents them from having to vote against the ones they don't want and instead vote for the ones they do. I've long believed in that. In our first mandate, when we had a majority, I would have had the theoretical option of ramming through my preferred option for electoral reform and keeping the letter of that promise. But I also know when it comes to changing our electoral system, it shouldn't be any one party, even with a majority, that gets to decide how all future elections will be unfolded. So, out of respect for democracy, I believed we needed to create a consensus around that. Unfortunately, it became clear, despite years of efforts and a lot of work by many different people in the House to try and come to a consensus, there was no clear consensus on how to change our electoral system for the better. And rather than risk Canadian democracy for the sake of ticking off a box in an electoral program, I said we're going to make sure we continue to work on building consensus. As I've said many times, including recently to Jagmeet, if they're willing to come to a consensus around improving our electoral system, I'm happy to revisit it any time, but it's not something any government should do all alone.
Thank you.
Next question.
Hi, Adam from CHH News. Can you touch on again Canada's role in the strikes in Yemen and the role going forward from this country?
Obviously, our military are better positioned. The Department of National Defence will be better positioned to answer details on that. But for Canada, it was extremely important, given the illegal and dangerous attacks on international shipping lanes, on civilian and commercial vessels. The international community had a responsibility to step up, as laid out by UN Security Council resolutions, and we support the very targeted actions taken by military assets from the UK and the US.
What concerns, if any, do you have in being part of a coalition to that go ahead and made these strikes?
Canada is a country that stands up for the international rules-based order, and the Houthis were endangering lives and livelihoods, not just of shipping in the region, but of people relying on the humanitarian supports, the commercial goods that are transiting through that extraordinarily important international waterway. Their actions could not continue, and that's why we supported the targeted actions to degrade their capacity to continue to put lives and livelihoods at risk in contravention of international law.
Next question.
Good morning, Mal Hamid with the Canadian Press. I want to follow up on the same topic. You're using kind of strong language condemning the actions of Houthis in Yemen, yet at the same time, Canada's role in these operations is very limited. Why is that?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
I'm just saying, like, why Canada's role in this operation led by the US in Yemen is very limited. You're saying Canada is not physically engaged in any military action. Why is that? Why Canada doesn't really take more?
We don't have the particular assets in the region. As I've said, members of the Canadian Armed Forces are within task groups working in the region, and we have contributed around sort of the planning and the overseeing of the operation. But the strikes were carried out by the UK and the US military.
Okay. Just want to follow up on the case that South Africa started at the ICJ. Would Canada support the ICJ findings if they side with South Africa? As I've always said, we believe deeply in the international rules-based order, and we have about 5 different cases that we're involved in at the ICJ as we speak. So, of course, we support the important and rigorous work done by the International Court of Justice.
Good morning. This is a question for our Bureau. A few days ago, you met with Toronto's top cop, and then protests were banned on Avenue Road. Did you say anything to the police about these protests?
I have had many ongoing conversations with community leaders, with municipal leaders, with police organizations, including the Chief of Police of Montreal before Christmas, on the importance of making sure that all Canadians feel safe in their country, in their communities. The right to protest is an important one in Canada that we will always defend and support. but we also need to be aware that rules and laws need to be enforced. However, the federal government doesn't have any direct line of command over decisions taken by the Ontario or the Toronto Police. I had a good conversation with the need to continue to protect all Canadians, whether it's through fighting Islamophobia or anti-Semitism, and I will continue to engage with partners right across the country.
Did you specifically express to Toronto's top cop that you would like to see the laws respected and abided by?
My job is to make sure that all Canadians are safe and feel safe across the country, and that is the conversation we had.
For our last question, we'll go back to Global for their follow-up.
Yeah, thank you very much. Mr. Prime Minister, just following up on my previous question about Canada's involvement in the airstrikes, and have you spoken to anyone in a member of the opposition regarding this, particularly the NDP? They are saying that Canada should do more as act as a brake as opposed to being part of this action. Is Canada doing anything to slow it down?
I haven't seen anyone saying that attacks on commercial, civilian, and humanitarian cargoes in the Red Sea are a good thing. Canada has a responsibility to ensure that maritime traffic is safe. And we are going to continue to make sure we're doing everything we can to keep people safe and counter some of the escalations by the Houthis in the region, which are not good for anyone.
Thank you. This concludes the press conference.
Thank you. And we've been listening to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau live in Guelph, who made his first big announcement of 2024 with what started as moving forward with the housing accelerator for Guelph. Also ended up as taking questions and answers from the media regarding the situation in the Middle East, as well as funding for municipalities dealing with homelessness.